What is going on, my friend? Welcome back, or welcome if you're new to MPI Radio. I am your host, James Allen, here to help you make your own massive positive impact in the world by being all that you can be. Because when you work on you, you transform the world with a little ripple effect. But sometimes I don't like to do it all by myself. I like to bring on help from my friends, which is why today we have a super special guest, and her name is Misty Cogdill. So Misty has been studying handwriting analysis since 2011, and she works with business owners, network marketers, entrepreneurs, coaches, speakers, service professionals, pretty much anybody under the sun, that really wants to make an impact as well. And she is different than most coaches, and I'm super excited to have her here because Misty specifically focuses on helping people reach their goals by analyzing personality traits and blocks in their handwriting. Like what? Crazy. And I love the 40-day challenge, which listening to this podcast, you probably know of, unless you're new. You can go back and learn more about that. We'll talk about it today as well. But she's written a book called You Can Heal Your Life with Handwriting. And she's done some amazing things. How are you doing, Misty, first of all?
I'm doing great, and I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So I heard, and I think you sent it to me, that you helped a guy go from $8 million to $12 million by changing his handwriting.
Yes, within a matter of 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah. And
How does that happen?
I cannot take credit for his first 8 million. That is something I will never take credit for, but
Sure.
him go from his 8 million to 12 million amplified what he was already doing and what he was already up to, and removed his blocks. And he said that he felt like he had a ceiling and a limit, and he was doing all the things. He was in finance, and he was doing all the things that all the other guys in the financial trade world do, and he just wasn't getting the results that they were getting. So he's like, I'm taking all the right actions, I'm doing all the right steps, I'm doing my affirmations, he's studying Bob Proctor, he's like doing all these things.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of the icing on the cake. So I said, well, you've got a lot of blocks in your signature for one, and then I found blocks throughout the rest of his handwriting as well, and I explained all about it and what the block was. And I can never tell people where the block came from. That's for their internal work to do. But as he changed his handwriting, I got to share with him certain techniques, and it got to amplify his results tremendously to go from 8 million to 12 million in 4 months.
That's insane. I just this is why I wanted you here because yeah, the 40-day challenge, how can we make it better, obviously? But it just boggles my mind, It's really interesting to say oh yeah, I helped a guy go from 8 to 12 million in 4 months by changing his handwriting. People are like, what? What are you talking about? I write down stuff all the time, I write checks, I write letters, write my name. So what are so many questions. What are the common kind of traits that you see in people's handwritings when you notice that they have a lot of blocks going on?
Yeah, so it's such a big topic, and I've learned so much over the last 10 years. But a lot of the times I'll see, especially with men, when they write in all capital letters, the way we were taught in grade school is actually 80% limiting. And then military teaches you to write in all capital letters. So both of the way you were taught in grade school being 80% limiting and the military having you write in all capital letters, both of those are huge blocks and very limiting. And I always share with people that when you're writing in all capital letters, there's a lot to explain for people to really understand what's happening. But the capital letter, when you're looking at a name, like for your name, for example, with the J is the capital letter, and then the rest of it would be the lowercase letters typically. And the capital letter works with your mindset and it works with your thinking, whereas the other letters in your name work with your everyday activities. So how you do the dishes, or how you go shopping, or what you like and why you like it, and all the things kind of impact and reflect part of your personality. So when you're writing in all capital letters, the blocks that get formed are emotional blocks. So it's not to say that a person's not going to be emotional, but it's going to create emotional blockages. So for people who you're going through life and you have an experience, I always actually like to talk about military men and women when they're writing in all capital letters and they go overseas. It kind of has you build walls around your heart, and it kind of allows you to kind of be stronger, which obviously is very common for men, and especially in the military. You know, you just kind of have a stronger personality in general. But what happens is it creates like these walls, so it feels like you can only get so close. You know, it's like keeping everybody at like arm's length, not allowing them to get close. And with it, when a person goes overseas and they have to do their job, you know, which is possibly kill somebody because they're in the military, they're in the war, like that's common when you're overseas, then it creates a trapped emotion. Obviously, going through that and having to do that type of a job is very hard, and there's emotions that come with it. But then the people come back overseas and then they're not changing their handwriting back to the way they used to write. So then it can create PTSD, and the post-traumatic stress disorder has those emotions that are blocked, that are not being able to be released. And you've really got to go through the feelings and those emotions to heal them and put them to rest, and kind of grow through it. But a lot of the times it gets trapped. So that's where I talk about, you know, anyone who writes in capital letters, I would recommend to stop and not write in all capital letters, because it does create distance between you and other individuals, and it does create walls and emotional blockages and all the things. I could go into a lot of detail about it, but to keep it kind of simple for this recording, it's just not advised in my world. And I had a gentleman who changed his handwriting. He went from all capital letters to writing normally with my recommendation. And he goes, I just wanted more sales. He was in the sales force, and he goes, I just wanted to, you know, attract more sales. And what he discovered was that he goes, there was nothing wrong with my relationship with my wife at all. But it felt like, you know, they were newly in love all over again. And she was a lot closer to him than what it was before. And he wasn't recognizing, he's like, wow, I didn't realize things could be so wonderful. And then the best part about his story was his 3-year-old son. His 3-year-old son was not a cuddly kid at all. And when he, as the gentleman, he changed his handwriting, he goes, my 3-year-old son all of a sudden became super cuddly and couldn't get enough attention from his dad, and was like, just opened up and became this very cuddly kid with his father. And he goes, I would have never expected that. I didn't know any different. But because his walls got brought down, he was able to be more open, that his 3-year-old son could respond to him differently because of it.
Amazing. I'm just like baffled. I just like, usually we go like 30 or 40 minutes. We're probably going to go over though, but we'll see. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I find it so fascinating because I mean, just as you mentioning that to me, like my dad, for example, writes in all caps, and unless he does cursive with his signature, which is actually really good, his signature, it's like a very nice, like his name's James Allen too. He has a really nice signature, but when he does normal handwriting in print, it is all caps, and it's illegible, you know.
Yeah.
But I know another guy, and my dad was in the military, which is why I find it interesting. And I know another guy who he was an old owner of this old gym that I went to, but he just had like a lot of like emotional kind of blocks, and you can kind of tell, you know, and never really opened up wholly like that. But he also wrote in all caps. So it's just like, as you're saying this, I'm like, oh my God, it's so real. Like, it's crazy. I find it
It's
crazy. Yeah, it's just weird how the correlation between your handwriting and the emotions that you have. I just find that so fascinating. So what if you have, because I wouldn't say I have the best handwriting. I've been in like events and stuff, and we're taking a bunch of notes, and people look down, they're like, wow, you could work on that. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. It's just like how it is. But I've also had a lot of like trauma in my past, you know, and things like that. I've gone through tons of insecurity and depression and anger. And I never think I'm done, you know. I
Yeah.
like Bob Proctor actually talks about that where he says, I've never got it, but I'm always getting it. And it's like that's me with life, you know. I've never got it, but I'm always getting it. Sometimes even when I feel like I've got it, I got to remind myself, check myself that I'm always getting it.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious, like, yeah, I mean, I can show you my handwriting if you really want to on the go there today, but I would actually love for you to analyze my handwriting real quick. Because if I write like, oh, shoot, do I want to do this right now? Do you want me to do this? I can show
I
you.
actually, in my Facebook group, Handwriting-Soul Academy, the group in there, I allow people to do a free handwriting analysis. And then I share with them kind of what I see in their handwriting, and then allow them to, I share about my courses and my classes. So, and
Oh, okay.
it's getting to be a lot because I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this.
Sure.
And so I'm actually doing a 5-day free masterclass on it where I'm going to talk for 1 hour each day for 5 days, starting March 29th, where I just share and share and share and share and share,
Oh
because
man.
a lot of information that people need to know and to understand before they start actually being interested, and kind of really understanding the benefits of it, and kind of my whole story of how it started in my life, and just kind of the journey and what happens with men and women, because a lot of women get married and then they change their last name, which then changes their signature, which then changes their personality and
Wow.
has a big impact on their psyche. And then guys are wondering, hey, how come you're not the same woman I proposed to? And then the women are going, what happened? I'm not the same person. What's going on? And then you're expected to live happily ever after.
What? That's crazy. I just don't, yeah, I never think about this stuff throughout my day. What is your story? Well, I'm not going to do the handwriting analysis right now. I'm going to go through your group and do it to support you more further and meet other enthusiastic handwriting people, I guess. But yeah, how did you kind of like fall into this and specifically handwriting? Where'd you really develop that passion for handwriting?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I get asked it all the time. And I was born, I mean, I'm an only child, and my mom was a single parent. So obviously, only children spend a lot of time alone when their mom's at work. And so I got to know myself really, really well, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. There's lots of pros and cons to both. But in getting to know myself really well, by the time I was 22 and got married, I had noticed that I had had a dramatic personality shift within the first year of marriage. And it's not like you get married and then the next day, boom, you're a different person, right? Like that just doesn't happen. So
Mm,
it took about a year, and it was a slow change over time that I didn't recognize. And a lot of other women don't, and as well as men either. Like it's just a small change, little by little by little by little every day. And then you have your new signature that you sign every once in a while on, your credit card statements or whatever the case may be. And then with it, it's like I just one day was sitting there going, I'm different.
mm,
Like, what happened? Like, where did I make a right turn in life and I should have made a left turn? And why am I, how did I change, and what caused the change, and how do I go back? I was very different. I could not put my finger on it. And everybody that I'd asked was like, well, yeah, you change. Like, that's just part of life. You just got to grow with it and go with the flow. And that's part of life. You have to accept it. And I said, no, something happened and I don't know what, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I just was in the dark for 6 years. I had no answers, nobody to explain it to me. I just was experiencing life very different. And so I ended up getting divorced, and got my maiden name back, and I got my old personality back. And again, it doesn't happen. It's not like I got my old last name and then boom, I was a different person the next day. That doesn't happen. And that's why so many people don't have the connection to understand the cause and effect of it, is because it's gradual and it's slow over time. So then
mm.
eventually I had my old personality back, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm back. Like, how did I get back? When did I get back? Why? It just clicks one day. And then you kind of start to have to look back and start to put the puzzle pieces together and really
Mhm.
connect those dots and be like, okay, well, oh, I was convinced for a while it was marriage. And then it was like, well, no, wait a minute. Why is it marriage? Like, what happens with marriage? Well, I changed my last name. I changed my signature. Does that have anything to do with it? And then I started to research, and then I found a lot of answers. And I've just been studying it passionately now for the last 10 years. And I'm sitting back going, nobody's out there saying, hey, when you get married, red flag, like that's going to change things. Are you ready for those changes? Do you know what those changes are? Are you aware? You know, do you want the change or don't you want the change? Like all of it has an impact, and nobody's educating us on this, but yet it's such a big part of our psyche that I'm like, this is critical and crucial. And I'm like, no, this needs to go out there to a lot of people to be able to explain and understand the importance of this big life change that nobody is given an education on. So I decided to make it my mission.
Okay, a couple questions around there. And one cool thing is that the amount of like clarity that you were seeking, I think was so cool, because that's something that high performers have in common, is that they seek clarity, right? More than most people. They look like, okay, well, what was it? I don't like the result. What is it? And you're like, maybe it's marriage, maybe it was my handwriting. It kind of boiled down into that. So props to you. Um, the other thing I'm kind of curious about is, like, because I'm not married, I've never been married. I'd love to one day, maybe. I don't really know, but I'd love to have kids one day. That's the bottom line, because I want to leave. That's like a legacy that I get to leave, ideally. I never know what can happen with kids, even. But anyway, different topic. What would you say was different about the Misty then, when you really started to notice it? Just curious if you're open to sharing. Like, what was it that, were you more irritable? Like, what was it? And
Yeah,
but then when you switch back
I
over, what happened? Yeah.
I I mean it was both of the experience were very educational.
Mhm.
Being Misty Cogdill, I never wrote my middle name when I was Misty Cogdill. And then getting married, I went from Misty Cogdill to Misty Cook, and I started to gain a lot of information. Now, obviously, I went from a C to a C, so the last name, the first letter of the last name is the life path, and that actually didn't change. For some women, it does, and for some women, it doesn't. But for me, it didn't. But the rest of the letters did, and with having the double O's, I started to attract a lot more information and knowledge. And all of a sudden, I was just hungry for more wisdom. I was hungry for more knowledge. I was hungry for more information, and I couldn't quite understand why. It's just all of a sudden I was drawn to it, and I didn't have an understanding. But you know, things like the movie The Secret and Oprah and you know, studying all the people on The Secret and Tony Robbins and, you know, just like all of these great high performers, I was starting to study and learn and gain knowledge and information. So obviously that was a very good experience. But I was very introvert. So Misty Cogdill is very bubbly, very high energy, could talk all day long, and I sometimes do. But it's the conversation piece, the one I could just go with the flow and be able to talk. I mean, that was from little on up. Everyone said I talk too much, and I'm like, well, I love connecting with people, and that actually went missing when I became Misty Cook. I was very started to analyze everything. I was more in my head. I was more kind of just trying to understand life and just very introvert. So I became very quiet, and everyone's like, you've changed. You're not the same. You know,
Mm.
you're that talkative girl that we once knew. And I said, yeah, I don't know why. I don't understand. And so with that, I really got to sit back and be like, how come I'm like, where did that part of me go? Like it just went missing. And I'm like, it just, what, how did I lose it? And how do I get it back? Like I
Mm.
couldn't explain it. And so, and that's for a lot of women, they have this new experience and nobody's able to explain it. Nobody's ever able to put a voice to it like I have been able to put a voice to it so that people really understand. And then when I became Misty Cogdill again and I got my maiden name back, I started putting my middle name Anne with my signature, which changed the energy also. But it was that talkative personality, that person that loved to connect, very high energy, like let's go. And that part of me started to come back. And then one day I'm just sitting there going, you know, I'm back. How did I get back? You know, and it's just that different personality shift. I mean, obviously my first name stayed the same. And I didn't have that as any different, but it's just noticing that every letter has a pattern, every letter has an energy, and every letter has an impact, whether you write it or not. That also has an impact on your psyche. And it really does play an effect and has an impact on you and on your thinking and the way that you think.
Mm. Okay. Wow. This is amazing. So, God, we're already at 20 minutes. This is like flying by. Um, okay. So, I have this thing called the 40-day challenge. We briefly talked about it. For whoever is listening right now, the the idea is that you just get a blank journal. I think that I've heard you say get one without lines, but that was before I had gotten this one because it does have lines. And we'll talk about this. And I'm curious, like, I want to talk with you, like, right now about how do we amplify the 40-day challenge to make it be more impactful, because I started studying a lot about handwriting and the power that actually writing down goals and ideas and dreams down on paper with your hand is way more powerful. And what I like to do personally when I do the 40-day challenge is I don't just write it, I like say the words as I'm writing them, and I notice that when I do that my energy is definitely a lot more engaged as I'm writing it out. But the 40-day challenge, for those of you that don't know, you just write out the main goal that you want to achieve right now. Like maybe it's that you want to write your book, like a best-selling book or something. That's your main goal, or whatever it is. Maybe it's getting the best shape of your life. That's your main goal. You write it out and you do 40 days, because 40 is the number for transformation. You can look it up. And you just write down on one side of the page, just like a brief kind of like version of the goal. So it's always at the front of your mind. And then you do it again in the evening. So in the morning, in the evening, 40 days. And if you miss one in the mornings or evenings or a day completely, then you have to restart your challenge, because I like to think about it like you're putting your dream in front of other things. There's times my girlfriend's looking at me and she's like, James, we got to go. And I'm like, hold on, let me just write this down real quick, because I'm putting my dream in front of some other things, and I try and like fit it in everywhere I can, but there's times where it does collide with things, but I still make it happen, and I'm always working on my dreams regardless. But just that small feat is like, if you completely forget about, it's like, where else are you forgetting about your dream? That's kind of
Yeah.
the idea that I have with it. Where else are you just like slipping, or is it just kind of like off in the distance? It's like, this is so important to me that I will put it in front of other pieces or at the end of my day. Plus we're always thinking about it. So that's the idea, just so you know, about the 40-day challenge. And I'm curious, like, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What would you recommend to change about it or to improve on that?
Well, I definitely would say, as I shared before, if anyone's writing in all capital letters, definitely stop immediately, because it does not serve them to their highest and best. The other thing is, if you're writing the way you were taught in grade school, it's 80% limiting. So, because the way we were taught in grade school, I mean, those are patterns that have been instilled in us and can create a lot of blockages. So that's something that I would change as well, but I would have to go into the full alphabet, and that's kind of what I do in my program.
Okay.
And every letter has an energy, every letter has an impact, it has a pattern to it. So if you were given a different name at birth than the name that you would have a different personality, you would have a different view on life, because every letter has a pattern and has an energy to it. And whether you write it or not, it's still, I don't know if you've ever heard of the gentleman Nick Vujicic. He's a gentleman without any arms and any legs,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's in California. And he still embodies his personality based on his name. And I've watched him. He's very inspirational, but he still is a reflection of his name, even though he can't write. So our name has a pattern and an energy to it, and we still embody it. And then when we write it, that creates a whole nother level of how it impacts our psyche and how it impacts our thinking and our awareness and our insights. And just knowing, I mean, I even did an experiment once where I changed my name and I wrote MISTI instead of MISTY. And I wanted to do it just to see what would happen, just to see how it would impact my psyche, or how I would think different, or how things would show up different, just as a test and as an experiment. And that experiment, I did it for 30 days, and I was like, whoa, this has an impact. Like I didn't realize the difference one letter could make. And when I did that, I was even more fascinated with how every letter matters. Every letter has an impact. Every letter has an energy. And I was like, I didn't know that this was as detailed as it was when I started studying it years ago. And it just kept getting deeper and deeper and more detailed, that I was like, I need to just keep it simple and go back to the basics of, journaling every day is important, and how you journal and what you journal is also important, and the way you journal. I mean, there's so many details that I could go into it, but as long as you're writing every single day, it's like going to the gym for your brain. You can go to the gym and work out your body every single day, or a couple times a week, and stretch those muscles and get that exercise. And if you go to a pen and paper and write every single day, then you're stretching your mind, you're stretching your awareness, and your just your thinking ability gets exercised from journaling and from writing. So I just want to say that's good for you to do, the 40 days that you're doing, and to keep it up, because journaling does have an impact and it does support you. Obviously, writing the letters in the most beneficial way. I've actually described it as like, if you picture a 2-year-old, and that 2-year-old is going to eventually be 5 years old, and you buy a 5-year-old outfit, that 2-year-old will eventually grow into that 5-year-old outfit. But at the time, they're 2. So the letters and everything, with all the research that we've done, we've studied, hundreds of people that are considered noble, enlightened thinkers, and kind of the way they write. Some of them had some, I mean, there's a lot of research and history that has gone into it. But when you start writing in the most beneficial way, it's like giving your mindset that 5-year-old outfit, knowing that you're going to grow into it. So then you're writing in that beneficial way, and you're impacting your psyche. You've got to grow and develop and evolve into that new person that is your highest and best self. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And it takes, all of your emotions come bubbling up to the surface to be healed. When you begin writing in the new way, it's almost like taking a lid off of a jar, and then you're like, oh, all these stuffed emotions that I didn't process back when I was 12, or back when I was 7, or back when I was 5, or back when I was 15, all those come bubbling up to be healed. And then you've got to, grow through it and go through it, release those emotions, feel them, have them, and then it creates like a quantum leap for you to go forward. Wow. So there's a lot that happens, and it's something that, I mean, some people have said, just give it over to everybody. And then it's like, well, there's a responsibility that comes with that, because you're impacting people's psyche, you're impacting their thinking, you're impacting their mental stability. And somebody who's suicidal, I would not recommend it at all. Somebody who's, going through a really hard time that's not stable, I would not recommend it, because it does have an impact in your thinking ability. And it's like moving. Obviously, everything's chaotic when you move, and you got to reorganize everything, and it takes a while to reorganize everything. And that's kind of what happens in the mindset when you're shifting everything over. It's not something, it's important to have somebody there to be able to explain, this is what's happening, this is what you're going through, this is, how it's all evolving. And just to have that support is very critical and important for an individual who's changing their psyche.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. So I heard you mention it like 3 different times when you said all that. And I do 100% agree that I didn't journal for a long time until I started the 40-day challenge. And if anybody's listening, like, what do you do after 40 days? Because 40 days isn't that long. I go to 90 days, and then I just started today, 120 days. So I'm just kind of going to see how far I can get, just kind of add 30 days from here on out. And yeah, I mean, I was thinking like I could stop doing it today, like when I was going to go do it, but I'm like, it's part of who I am. I like doing it because it keeps my goals and dreams at the forefront of my mind. I can't help but not think about my goals and dreams that I'm working towards, and seeing opportunity by doing this. But you said writing in like the proper way, or writing in the new way. So I'm curious, like, when I'm doing my 40-day challenge, whoever's listening, what do you like? What is the right way? Because I think I saw one other person other than you who talked about handwriting, and they said like every word is intentional, be intentional with every word. Does it mean like slowing down, or how do we like improve our handwriting and make it the best? And what are good practices for whoever does take on the 40-day challenge?
Yeah, I've shared with people and my clients especially is write every letter as though you were going to receive $1 million for writing it.
Mm,
Like be intentional and write it slowly. Like you don't have to, you're working with your psyche when you're writing. So you need to value yourself and give yourself the time and the attention and the amount of care that it deserves. And just kind of writing quickly and being sloppy doesn't give you the time and attention that your patterns that get developed in your mindset, the way that you think is important and what you
mm,
think is important. So all of it has an impact. And when you go slowly, you're being intentional and you're allowing yourself to develop healthy patterns. I've actually shared it's very similar to golfing. Obviously, if you golf, and I mean, I wasn't a golfer, but I know other people who were. And if you shift your golf swing just a little bit, it makes a world of difference where that ball
mm.
lands. And if you change your handwriting just a little bit, it makes a world of difference in your thinking. And you're like, this isn't that big of a deal. It is a big deal. It's
Mm.
just as important as golfing. Your golf swing, you're like, oh, I could shift it just a little bit. It's not going to go that far off from the hole in one or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's in the lake and you're like, what the heck? Well,
Yeah.
just your handwriting is just as detailed as golfing.
Mm. Wow, I like that. I like golfing actually. I'm not an avid golfer, but I enjoy it. I've gone a handful of times and I'm relatively good for being new. Not to boast. But anyway, question before we start to close out here. So many questions. I could literally talk to you forever, but I don't want to hold you all day. Um, I think it's kind of interesting because I'm obsessed with like quality relationships. That's why I've worked on myself to be more confident, charismatic, attract the right kind of people and good quality people, intimate and non-intimate relationships. So that's a huge topic that I love. But when people get married, which is a common thing to do you recommend that the woman changes her name or that she doesn't?
So that's per each individual. I've been asked
Sure.
that question several times, and the best answer I could give is there's been two different experiences. I've seen a woman get married, she changed her last name, and she skyrocketed. She went from
Oh, interesting.
where she was to the number one consultant in her field and in her industry, and her life completely altered and it was in a positive way and she loved it and she had no idea why. I'm sitting back knowing what I know and watch the changes over time. And and for that individual it was a great experience for her, and that new last name was very beneficial and she never wanted to look back. So for that person, that was what was right for her. I've seen other people where they got that new last name and they did not like the change and they did not like the impact and the energy and they did not
Mm,
like a lot of things about it. And then it changed who they were. And then, there's no accident that there's obviously divorces because people are not being educated on this and you're not being shown, hey, your last name, it's going to have an impact and do you like it, and all of the things that go with it. What you could do is obviously hyphenate and then you're just adding to who you are instead of taking away. But then again, it just becomes per that individual what's right for them. It's
mm,
being properly educated on the impact, on the energy, on the patterns, and on all of it to really understand and have that conversation and have both parties know, when they're going into this marriage, it's going to impact both of them because they're both, dealing with the person who's changing their last name is going to have a difference in a shift in who they are. And then the person marrying them is like, well, hey, the person's going to change. Are you okay with that? Do you like it? Are you going to like it? It's really, really important, but I can't say what's right or wrong for one versus another. I could just say that they need to be educated on it and make that informed decision for themselves.
yeah, it's interesting. So that I'm assuming comes down to, because you said every letter has like a purpose to it, an intention, kind of a resonance to it with how we say it or how we write it. So it comes down to like knowing I'm really into, I'm going to go to your course, your 5 hour like course thing. Cause I'm like amazed by this whole thing. Cause I'm curious like about my name, like Allen, my last name, or James, James, and just kind of curious about like what you have to say more about that. Cause you could literally talk forever about this. It's amazing. I love it. We're going to start closing out. I think the best way is for people to continue to just learn from you, and check out your course. Like what would you say if someone's like, I really want to learn more, and then I have a final question for you, but if they want to learn more about you, what's the best place to learn more about handwriting and find out more?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing and then I'll share that. So the
Sure.
first letter of our first name is our biggest challenge in life, and the first letter of our last name is our life path. And then if you have a middle name, it's an energy that you're seeking naturally without even knowing it. It's just an expression that is part of you. So with that, every letter, when you master the way that you write that first letter of your first name, that it becomes your greatest gift once you overcome it. So your biggest challenge in life becomes your greatest gift. And again, I could go into so much detail and I could talk for hours about this, but the best way for people to reach me, I do have a website. It's handwriting-soul-academy.com. And then you can reach me on Facebook. I've got facebook.com/groups/handwriting-soul academy. That's where a lot of people go. I offer free handwriting analysis. You can book an appointment with me. And then I'm offering my 5-day free masterclass, which if you go to it's handwriting or it's facebook.com/groups/5-day handwriting class. And if you go there, you're going to see the name of the group is called Unlocking the Future of Human Potential. And that's starting on March 29th. All that's required is your email address. And then I'm going to share 1 hour each day for 5 days, all about my story and go into even more detail of what I just shared here so that people really have a full proper education and know the importance of it and kind of what to do and how they can either join one of my programs or, whatever they want to do with that information. It's just getting it out there, getting it known, and having more people spread the word, because nobody is educating anybody on this when they get married, on the importance of it, of what you name your child. The name is critical. All of the way that you write. I mean, there's so much to it. It's like a giant elephant. Where do you want to start? But it's just really kind of taking that 5-day free masterclass is going to be the start to be able to allow people the education that they deserve, and then to look more into it for sure.
Wow. Yeah. I definitely want to check it out. Curious, if you send me links to all these, which I'll make sure that we do so we can put them in the description.
Yeah.
Is it is something like, let's say someone finds this like a year down the road, can they still click that link? Is it only live, or is it going to be recorded for people to constantly look at? Or
so I was doing it because I've been doing one-on-one appointments, and an hour is not enough time to sit there and educate somebody on everything and then say, hey, so are you interested? And they're like, I need to learn more about this. So I'm doing it as a place to be able to have everyone come and then get the full education so that they can, learn it for the 5 hours. I'll probably go over because I always do. And have that education so that they understand it. And then where it goes from there, nobody really teaches this. So I'm kind of coming from an innovative perspective of like, what's the best way to teach this and what can I do to, share this with as many people as possible. So the group's going to be there. The 5 days going to be there. All that's required is your email address. And so that they can have that education and then be able to go from there. So the group will still continue to be there. They'll just need to provide their email address.
Cool. Yeah. I was just curious, just so I don't want to give someone a link and then they'll be like, what the heck, this page doesn't exist or whatever. So yeah, make sure we get all the links that you need inside the description. Okay, Misty, it's 40 minutes. We're going to start closing out here. We went a little bit over, but totally cool. I love this personally, but there's one question that I always ask everybody on the podcast, everybody that guests, and I want people who are the audience to ask it as well. But it's Misty Cogdill. What is your MPI? What's the massive positive impact that you personally want to see, create, or be a part of in this world?
Mine is definitely handwriting and being able to educate somebody so that they don't have to go through um the the experience that I went through was for me to learn and to grow. But if I can help somebody not go through the pain that I went through and to not go through the confusion and the not knowing and the not understanding and the what the heck happened, and to be able to explain to somebody, hey, this is what's going to happen and save them, or I don't even want to use the word save, but to educate them so that they're not going through the confusion state like I did for so many years. It could advance them and change their life for the rest of their life and have them reach their soul's true potential and not have to be so confused without knowing. Then that's really my mission in life, is to be able to get this out there to more people so that we all can rise to our highest and best version of ourselves and what we're capable of while we're here. You know, none of us are getting out of this planet alive, so we might as well make the best of it and do what we can while we're here. And it maximizes our potential, it maximizes what we're capable of, and it amplifies everything that we are as a human being. It
Mm.
amplifies what's possible for you when you know this information. So that's my mission, is to share that with the world, with as many people as possible. It's like the starfish story, you know, it's like you can't save all the starfish, but I just made a difference for that one, is
Mhm.
kind of the story behind how I can try and touch as many lives as possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love it. I think it's so cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning way more about it because yeah, I need to work on my handwriting personally. So here we go. Cool. Well, people know where to find you. You have an amazing MPI for yourself. We're gonna close out here, but yeah, do you actually just quick plug for me too is if I do have a workshop myself that you guys can check out. If you want to learn more about maybe you're working with Misty stuff and you're like, I don't really know what I want to work towards or what the goal is, Misty can definitely help you. And as an additional resource, feel free to check out a free workshop that I did that will give you more tools that you can use to help you figure that out for yourself. Unless you're already there, you want to move to another level, feel free to check that out. It's a vision workshop. I will put a link down in the description as well. Just anything we can do to support you on your journey. Do you have any kind of final thoughts, closing thoughts for the listener?
Just that when everybody knows the power of their name and the letters in their name and the impact that it has, and when you really start to put some care and attention behind it, it will change your life.
Mm,
So, and especially the first letter of your first name is your biggest challenge. So when you overcome it, it becomes your greatest gift. And when everybody's at their highest and best giving their greatest gift, humanity's going to be a lot better place.
100%. That's what the MPI is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, take what you learned here, get out there and make your own massive positive impact. We'll see you in the next one.